Welcome to An Author's Voice, where I'll discuss the craft behind writing and illustrate the points with my own work or discuss other well-known examples. Every story has a moment where the world breaks open. The monster steps out of the dark. The letter arrives. The phone rings at 3 a.m. The sky changes color and doesn't change back. It's the scene you've been building toward, and it's one of the hardest things to write. Because the instinct is to go big. Max out the adjectives, stack the imagery, make the prose scream as loud as the moment feels, and almost every time that's the wrong move. Today I want to talk about writing the moment everything changes, and why restraint does what spectacle can't. I'm going to read you part of a short story I wrote called Signal Zero, about a military sergeant who accidentally triggers first contact with an alien intelligence. The full story is on the blog right now if you want to read it. But the scene I want to focus on is the arrival itself, because it taught me something about what happens when you turn the volume down on your biggest moment instead of up. Quick setup. Sergeant Voss has been guarding an archaeological dig on a frontier world for 11 weeks. The team just uncovered a column in an inner chamber, alien, intact, and doing something none of them can explain. Voss orders everyone back. They're still moving when it happens.
There is no good language for what the integration's arrival feels like. I know that because in the years that followed, I heard 1,000 attempts, poetic ones, clinical ones, the breathless journal entries of a generation trying to pin down the most significant thing that had ever happened to them. None of them got it right, including mine. The closest I can manage, imagine there has always been a sound at the edge of your hearing, so constant and so low that you stopped noticing it decades ago, and then it stops. Except that's backwards. It wasn't a sound stopping. It was something arriving that you hadn't known was absent. A new sense opening, not sight or hearing or touch, something prior to those. Something that said, here's what you are. The column pulsed once. Deep, structural, felt in the bones rather than heard. The patterns on the walls lit up simultaneously. All of them at once. Alien geometry made suddenly luminous. Not bright exactly, but present in a way they hadn't been before. And then the light went outward through the stone and through the ceiling and through 30 meters of rock and beyond that, broadcasting at a frequency nothing in human physics could explain, because what it was transmitting wasn't energy in any category we had a name for. It was the integration, and it was putting itself into us. The overlay arrived in my visual field like a door opening in a room I'd thought was a solid wall. It wasn't projected, not on my visor, not on any screen. It was simply there, in the space between what I was looking at and my eyes. Letters, numbers, categories, rendered in a clean geometric typeface that matched nothing in any human design language. I saw my name. I saw numbers beside each of a set of labels I didn't recognize. I saw a designation. I stood there in the middle of an alien chamber with a column pulsing light behind me, and a stat screen floating in my vision, and I thought, with the profound clarity available only to people who have just been ambushed by the universe, I need to write a report about this.
So here's what I want to unpack. That scene is, at the scale of the story, the biggest moment imaginable. First contact. An alien intelligence rewriting the operating system of every sentient being in the galaxy. This is a moment that changes civilization permanently. And the prose goes quiet. The arrival isn't described through sensation. It's described through the absence of sensation. A sound you didn't know was there, stopping. Something arriving that you hadn't known was absent. The language keeps reaching for the experience, and then admitting it can't get there. The closest I can manage. None of them got it right, including mine. That's the craft move. When your moment is truly enormous, the honest thing, and the more powerful thing, is to let the narrator fail to describe it adequately. Because the reader's imagination, working in that gap between what the narrator can articulate and what they're trying to convey, will always generate something more vast and more personal than any description you write. The other thing happening here is that Voss's voice never breaks register. He's military. His instinct is to assess, secure, report, and he holds on to that instinct through the most disorienting experience of his life, which is how you know it's disorienting. If I'd written him falling apart, going poetic, Reaching for cosmic language, the reader would process the prose style rather than the experience. But because Voss keeps trying to be professional, keeps trying to process this through his training, you feel the gap between his voice and the magnitude of what's happening. His restraint becomes the reader's tension. Later in the story, and you can read this part on the blog, the system gives Voss a designation. It calls him Sentinel, and it's exactly right. 22 years of military service, and the alien intelligence names him for what he was doing when it arrived, standing guard. But his stat screen says frame 7. And Voss is sitting there thinking about the 3 people who died at Hilo Station because he wasn't fast enough, carrying weight the system will never find a category for. The system is omniscient about behavior, and blind to suffering. That gap, between what the system can measure and what it can't, is the whole story in 2 numbers, and I never state any of that. Voss doesn't say, the system can't measure grief. He just looks at the number and thinks about the people he lost, and the reader makes the connection themselves, which is the same principle as the arrival scene. Don't describe the enormity. Describe the shape it leaves in the person standing next to it. Here's the takeaway. Next time you're writing your biggest moment, the reveal, the catastrophe, the transformation, try turning the volume down instead of up. Let your narrator reach for the experience and come up short. Let their professional voice hold steady while the ground shifts underneath it. The reader will feel the earthquake in the gap between what's said and what can't be. The full story, Signal 0, is on the blog now. Go read it. And when you do, watch for what Voss doesn't say, because that's where the story actually lives. Until next time, thanks for following along. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to hear or read more of this sort of thing, subscribe to my email list and follow me on social media using the link below, or search online for Charlie For It, and you will likely find me. Until next time, thanks for following along. Voices for this recording provided by Speechify. All content written by Charlie For It. Any opinions expressed in this recording are solely the author's. Learn more at charlieforay.com.